Figure P5-8 has that same kind of ability to rotate. Everything in here pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and bring in the plate. Since this is our kind of the last one, I'm going to bring in the 4x4, but then we're going to use the other items just to revisit. So spacer plate, 4x4, and then we'll open it, and I'm going to rotate. So the other thing is that if I just go ahead and accept, and I didn't do any of this rotate, that would put it origin to origin. And that would be a little bit closer when I float it. So it's kind of a toss-up. Do I get it into position and then I go through the process of applying the orientation mates? I don't have to do this at all, except that visually it makes more sense, the reality base or the perception base of I want to be thinking of it in its orientation and its relation in the real world. So the end game should be that whatever we're building at some point is going to be made, whether it's machined, 3D printed, stamped, injection molded. At some point this is going to be a real object. Otherwise it's just an exercise in conceptualization and going through the busy work. So I treat everything as if it is going to be made at some point. And in that process we start thinking early and often about the tolerances, about our dimensions, as mentioned in the prior videos, that the part is the time to start thinking about the tolerances and then building up as we go through the process. Alright, so the difference for our bracket without is all we're going to see is the default, so I'm not having to select anything there. I did not create a mate reference, so I could go back and create that mate reference, but once the part is in the assembly, and I've already got an instance of that component, it's not really going to help me out. Since I'm only putting 2 of these in, I don't see it's that big of a deal. Alright, so we will go coincident. Okay, and then this is capable of rotating, which we know. And we're going to see how well this this buttons up. Oh, I guess I need to keep rotating. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Alright, so the only inferred is that if I was to split this screen with the L bracket open, then there is that automatic mate inference. But that's the only thing aside from the mate reference that I can do is from manually inserting these mates. Alright, there's a coincident, and then we'll go back to Control 7 for isometric. Need to bring in another spacer plate, and then those 2. Okay, waiting for the graphics or the computer to catch up here. Got a little too carried away with the buttons. Alright, so on occasion you get a little button happy, then the computer's gonna have to take a moment to catch up. And coincident. Alright. So on the other side, I can kind of see a little bit of a sliver there. That goes coincident. And then for the pegs to be concentric, it should rotate up and put everything into position. Alright, so it didn't like my pop-up. There we go. And so the holes will pick up the concentric, and there's pretty much a tolerance that it's only going to be able to line up in that position. Alright, so then we're going to insert the Z-bar. Okay, so the Z-bracket comes in. Again, it's a non-configured item. So I don't know if I'm just losing the position on my mouse or I've worn out another mouse. Okay, so coincident, and then that rotates over once I get it into position. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. And we'll bring that one out, and then select, and control select, and concentric. Now I think it was too close to the heads up on that one, so yeah, since we got it open, we'll go ahead and continue. Alright, and then with the spacer plate, then I can bring that one in. We can go back over to the quad and make sure to accept. And it got that one again. So let's close. Let's see if it'll undo it. Nope, got to go back in and pick. So with that one still selected, we'll go to the plate 4x4. Okay, and then our red explanation points and warnings of the problems go away. We'll pick the quad on that one. Just off screen is my checkbox. Let's go ahead and pick one of these to be coincident. We have the two cylindrical faces to be concentric. Alright, and then that becomes a valid solution because I can rotate and it will move and it will do all kinds of fun stuff until it gets into position. And those are the gyrations that are potential out of this mix because these are not fastened, they're not otherwise disposed with the pegs to be able to do those types of things. So I'm going to leave that one because it's fun. I'm not seeing any interferences here, so that's not an issue. It will be able to move like that. And that would just be a good way to identify my my possible dynamic motion. Alright, so we're going to pick up everything's going to be a 10 by 20 peg. However, this does not have the mate reference. And so let's rotate about X, that'll put it in position. And then we will have a coincident. And I will have a concentric. And then we can drag another one in. And then this peg will be coincident, and I lost it inside of the part. Well, okay, I can see it there. If I'd completely lost it, then I would go over to Move Component. Actually would need to identify that one in the feature tree first. It highlights, and then when I move Component, it's going to allow me to move it out of the interference with the part. Alright, so we have a concentric, and then our coincident. Oh, alright, so since, let's see, missing a little arrow, the coincident needs to reverse. You can flip the mate alignment, and it's just warning me the other one changed as well. These are possible mates, so that might be affected, but no major problems there. Alright, so this is getting a little bit tedious. Now all I've done is put in 2. So let's go with the edge and the mate geometry for the mate reference for this geometry default in any on the edge, and I'll save it. And now because it's in the mix, I can drag it, hit the tab, drag it, hit the tab. And I mentioned putting this in the design library, so we may do that as a follow-up on this process. Alright, so in let's see, we've got two more. And again, I don't really care about the rotation and the minus signs. It's kind of an expectation that with these being able to move as much as they do with just the pegs, and getting into whatever fun position that it wants to rotate with. All right. So you should be getting kind of a sense of the process and going through, utilizing some of those tools. Even if you didn't create the configurations, would still recommend that you use the mate references in your assemblies, especially with the pegs. All right, so one more save. For there is a 5-9 that was not part of the assignment or the exercise that I'm going to use to detail some sub-assemblies. So we'll take a look at that, and then we'll be ready for exploded views and drawings.